How's it going, everyone? It's been several months now since my first tier list video, and with the release of many new characters such as Kana, Rosie, the Konosuba characters, and Theseus, I figured now's a good time to make an updated tier list for you guys. The framework for how I designed this tier list ultimately stems from this one question, which is, how often do I use each character given that I have all of them? Keep in mind, this is from the point of view of an endgame player. I'll try my best to explain each tier, along with each characters I've selected. I'll also try to place them in order within each tier from left to right as to who I would rank higher. I'll go through each character fairly quickly, but I'll be sure to provide additional details on the screen. For this tier list, I'll start with SS and move my way down to S, A, and then B. SS would include characters I deemed essential if you want to get really far into the game. S tier represents characters that have no disadvantages whatsoever in my opinion. They're not as essential as those in the SS tier, but they are a great benefit no matter what content you're playing. S tier is followed by the A tier, which are characters who I think excel in at least two areas of the game. They're solid characters but may have a disadvantage or two. They're not required to have, but would be nice to have. Lastly, at the bottom is the B tier, where the characters typically excel in only one area. If they excel in more than one area, then the reason they're in B tier is because there are better substitutes in the above tiers. For example, Gaia offers a strong active skill useful for clearing enemy waves, but Karin and Artemis in the A tier offer the same thing with the addition of a team benefiting passive. For the most part, if you don't have any of these characters in B tier, then you're not missing out on much. Starting off with the SS tier, we obviously have the main character Kain. When you first start out, he's fairly weak, but after fully transcending and rebirthing him, Kain becomes a force to be reckoned with, and can hold his own. Once you've tapped into his potential, he becomes a notable tank and damage dealer for your team. He will prove useful in just about any part of the game. Next is Yui, who is the best 5-star healer in the game. Healers are the cornerstone of every team, as their job is to keep everyone alive. Not only does Yui have the strongest heal in the game, her passive skills also buff Kain, the rest of the team, and debuff the enemy. You can't ask for a better package than that. If you want to get far in the game, you'll not only have to get only one copy of Yui, but multiple copies of her in order to maximize her healing potential and survivability. Next on the list are Megumin and Darkness, who were part of the Konosuba collaboration. If you're new to the game, then unfortunately they are no longer available, as they were only made available to summon during the month of May. If you do have these, then consider yourself lucky. They've helped me progress through many of the walls in the game, whether that be in adventure mode or Dark Lord's Tower. Megumin is a fire wizard who is notorious for her nuking abilities. She has the strongest active skill in the game as a mage and is often used to one-shot bosses or burst down bulky enemies. All other mages' active skill damage pales in comparison to Megumin, so that is why she is rated SS on my list. Megumin is great for most of the game's content. Conversely, Darkness is the best tank in the game in a traditional sense. The purpose of a tank is to divert all enemy damage onto them as opposed to the team, and Darkness's active skill does exactly this. Darkness is the perfect tank to protect your backline, and this has helped me out tremendously in situations where I need to protect my backline, such as Dark Lord's Tower and raids. Lastly in the SS tier is Kana. Besides Kain, Kana is the archer that has the strongest physical active skill. Like Megumin, she uses her extremely potent active skill to either burst a boss down or one-shot a boss given the right conditions. She may be underwhelming at first, but after maximizing her skills and rebirthing her, she will become a godsend for many players stuck on adventure walls. She is on SS tier for this reason, in addition to her versatility. I use Kana in farming adventure, slasher mode, abyss mode, and guild territories to name a few. Next are the S tier characters Rachel, Dark Lord, and Karin. Although Rachel is only a 4-star, she has some of the best team passive skills in the game. Her passive skills provide the entire team a great deal of health, defense, and crit rate. This total package will surely make your team more sustainable. She is great in conjunction with tanks such as Darkness and Vivian. I often use her in difficult boss battles where I need the added survivability. Dark Lord, on the other hand, is one of the game's greatest and most versatile offensive buffers. She is most notable for having two solid team buffs, one that increases the team's attack, and the second skill increasing the team's crit damage. In addition to this, her active skill has the potential to unleash a massive amount of damage, clearing out 2 waves of enemies in a single use, which makes her perfect for farming. I use her almost everywhere, ranging from adventure mode, raids, abyss mode, and guild territories to name a few. Now, I've placed Kayran at the bottom of S tier due to her versatility and strength, especially in the late to end game. Kayran's passives grant the team additional crit rate and crit damage, while her active skill can be compared to Dark Lord's. It has the range to clear 2 waves with immense power. Because of this, Kayran excels in farming adventure along with slasher mode. Her active skill clears enemy waves while her passive skills buff the rest of the team. Given the immense power of her active skill, Kayran's ultimate is a force to be reckoned with, and can be used to deal devastating damage to bosses in adventure mode and abyss mode to name a few examples. She just does too much damage in the late game to justify putting her any lower on the tier list in my personal opinion. Following the S tier are the characters in A tier. The first to note is Artemis, a very respectable archer in the game. Artemis is a close second to Kayran. She also possesses an extremely strong active skill that will more than likely one-shot a single enemy wave, but pales in comparison to Kayran's active skill that has further range, clearing a maximum of 2 waves of enemies. Other than being a monster herself, Artemis does provide the team some decent amount of crit rate, which is very useful for most parts of the game, especially in slasher mode where the crit resistance of enemies increases as you climb higher and higher. I personally find her useful in all areas of the game, and you should definitely not sleep on her. The next pairing of characters on the list are Rosie and Vivian. 2 drastically different characters, yet they are both extremely useful in many situations. Rosie is one of the newer characters as of late. She's a dark mage buffer whose main role is to provide an offensive buff to her allies. Her active skill places a debuff onto the enemy, causing them to take additional damage from your team. In addition to this, her passive skill strengthens the power of the next active skill used after using her own active skill. This skill in particular is the main reason she excels when used in conjunction with a powerful burst damage team composition such as those involving Kana or Megumin. If you're ever stuck on a wall and your burst damage needs a slight boost to finish off the boss, consider adding Rosie to the team. Other than this, Rosie herself doesn't do too much damage and has no other team skills, so that is why I placed her in A tier. I just don't use her often enough to justify placing her any higher. Vivian is another key character that is often overlooked. She's a fantastic tank whose active skill gives the entire team an additional defense boost, in addition to her passive, which already grants the entire team additional defense. Though extra defense is great, her main usage stems from her passive skill that reduces the enemy's missile penetration by 1. In a nutshell, if an enemy who shoots projectiles pierces your entire team of 5, then adding Vivian to the team will reduce the number of teammates hit to 4. More often than not, the person on the very left of your team is your healer. Not only will they be safe from the enemy fire, but they will have the luxury of having to heal 1 less teammate, which will ultimately improve your team's survivability. If you hit a wall against a projectile enemy, try using Vivian to see if that helps. Projectile enemies do not include breath attack enemies. Next up is Theseus, the newest character as of the making of this video. He is a dark warrior whose abilities are designed to counter enemies that are resistant to fire. Since Kana and Megumin are practically useless against those foes, then that is where Theseus steps in. His active skill is essentially a burst damage skill that will do bonus damage if the enemy has a resistance to fire. His passive skills are mainly self buffs that add to his individual damage. Theseus will be the perfect DPS against bosses such as the Dark Dragon and the bosses in Abyss mode who often have fire immunity or penetration resistance. Because he offers little in terms of team buffs and is very situational, I've placed him in the A tier. I just don't see myself using him a whole lot of places unless it's against enemies resistant to fire. Followed by Theseus is Odin. In terms of team utility, Odin is a light mage who is extremely similar to Dark Lord. The only difference is that Dark Lord offers 2 team buffs, whereas Odin offers 1 team buff. She compensates for this by having an active skill that not only stuns the enemy, but also provides an attack buff to your team when activated, whereas Dark Lord's 2 team passes are passive and will remain in effect even if she dies in battle. I don't use Odin quite as often nowadays, as I have other mages such as Megumin to deal damage, but given Odin's utility and very versatile skill set, I've placed her in the A tier. When I did use her, it was primarily for climbing adventure, Dark Lord's Tower, and raids. Next up is yet another dark mage named Dark. Don't confuse her with Darkness or Dark Lord. Dark was a bit of an underdog back in the day, but that was mainly because her active skill was bugged and did not do as much damage as it was supposed to. It has now been fixed and has improved her viability considerably. Dark's active skill is essentially a Dragon's Breath, which is a huge AoE attack that covers the whole screen. She is perfect when used in conjunction with someone like Rosie or Aqua, who would buff Dark's crit rate and crit damage. Because of her active skill, Dark excels in areas such as farming adventure and slasher mode. Other than that, she isn't widely used anywhere else. Because Dark only excels in two areas, which were farming and slasher mode, I've put her towards the bottom half of the A tier. Next is the other 5-star healer Aqua, who should probably be higher on the tier list. Unfortunately, she is not available anymore for new players, but just to give a quick synopsis of her, she is essentially an offensive version of the 5-star healer Yui. Her heals are not as strong, but she makes up for this with an offensive active skill and passive skill. Her active skill grants the entire team additional crit rate and crit damage, while her passive skill gives the entire team extra attack. I often use her in situations where I may not need the stronger healer, but instead need more damage to finish a boss off. Other times I will use both Yui and Aqua for the additional heals and plethora of team buffs. Though Aqua is comparable to Yui, she is nowhere near Yui when it comes to being a healer. Looking back at this, I do want to place Aqua higher on the tier list, possibly breaking into the S tier due to her versatility in the endgame. When she first came out, I barely used her because I thought she was a worse version of Yui, but her offensive utility has helped me break through several walls in the late game where I needed additional damage, so I owe it to her for that. The last 3 characters in the A tier are definitely useful characters but are nothing to write home about. Starting with Aina, Aina is a fire mage whose active skill consists of an AoE stun ability that also increases the team's attack. Other than this, she does offer some team utility such as providing the team extra penetration, as well as reducing the damage your team takes from fire enemies, but only in raids. The only times I ever use Aina is when I'm building a stun lock team, or when I am doing the fire raid to increase my team's survivability. Because she's only useful in these few situations, she's placed in the bottom portion of the A tier. In contrast, Joan is in a similar boat as Aina. Joan is a light elemental mage whose active skill is also an AoE stun, which makes her essential for a stun lock team. Like Aina, Joan does offer some beneficial team skills too. Her other passives include blocking the team from enemy hits, providing the team extra crit damage, providing the team extra health and defense, and lastly, reducing the team's damage taken from light elemental enemies, but only in raids. Just like Aina, I only use Joan when I am stun locking a boss or when I'm tackling the light raid boss. Last but not least in the A tier, we have Lilith. On paper, she is yet another dark type that may not look all that impressive, but given the right tools and situations, her versatility and passive skills can prove to be useful. Her active skill is simply a haste that increases her attack and attack speed, nothing special there. Where she proves useful is her passive abilities. The first to note is her charm ability, which lowers monsters' defense by 25% when maxed, and this includes bosses. In addition to this, her other noteworthy passive is Crush, which mainly buffs Kane's attack by a considerable amount. Though this buff does not show in the stat screen, take in mind that it does reflect in battle. Back in the day, Lilith was a very notable DPS, but with many new characters like Kana and Megumin, she's been thrown down to the wolves in A tier. Nowadays, I mainly use Lilith in slasher mode only, though her passives have proven useful to me in the past and most other game modes whenever I need a buff to Kane. Due to the few amounts of times I actually take Lilith out in the late game, I have placed her at the bottom of the A tier, though for many new and mid-level players who don't have all the characters, she may be a little more useful for you. Finally, we get to the B tier. These are the players we typically see perform well in mainly one but sometimes two areas of the game, and because I rarely use them, they are placed in the deep depths of the B tier. Individually, they're not bad characters, but you'll see that there will be better substitutes for these characters that are higher on the tier list. Starting at the top of the B tier, we have none other than Belphegor. Belphegor is a dark type warrior whose main usage lies in slasher mode. Her active skill is a haste, and her passives basically make the team and herself stronger as you kill more enemies, hence the reason she excels in slasher mode. Having her in other game modes where battles are short with few enemies does not suit well for her skills, which makes having other buffers or DPS in her spot a better option to use generally speaking. Because that is the extent of Belphegor's utility, she is placed in the B tier. Next on the list are Athena and Lucifer. They are both mages that have an AoE stun as their active skill, just like Aina and Joan. The reason Aina and Joan are in a tier above Athena and Lucifer is because of their passive ability to reduce their raid boss's damage on the fire and light raids, making them an essential character to have if you want to maximize your score on those two particular raids. Besides having a stun, they both provide 1 to 2 team-oriented skills. Athena provides 2 useful skills, which are team penetration and a damage buff for all mages in the party, whereas Lucifer offers 1 team buff, which is giving the team extra crit rate. Because their only specialty is within stun locking teams, both Athena and Lucifer are in the B tier. The last 5 characters on the list are in no particular order since they're all equally mediocre. The first of the 5 is Johann. Since I included Rachel, I felt I should include the other 4-star healer in the game, Johann. As a healer, he pales in comparison to 5-star healers such as Yui. As a buffer, he also pales in comparison to Aqua and his 4-star counterpart Rachel. In the late to end game, it is much more useful to have the defensive buffs from Rachel than any tiny offensive buffs you get from Johann. When compared to an offensive buffer like Aqua, her skills also outshine Johann by a wider margin. No contest there. If Johann is your only healer, then that is fine starting out, but I would start saving up for Yui as your very next character. She's just that much better of a healer. Following Johann, we have Ares, who is a light elemental warrior. As a tank, Ares pales in comparison to Kayn, Darkness, and Vivian. As a warrior who offers little to no team utility, his only team-oriented skill is useful in PvP mode, which in Swordmaster Story is a game mode that is a little underwhelming to say the least. Because Ares is only useful in one game mode, probably the least important game mode, he is placed towards the bottom of the tier list. Next is Gaia, who could arguably be placed higher on the tier list. As a Leaf Elemental Archer, Gaia has a very strong burst damage skill that can one-shot enemy waves, which can be useful for farming. Besides that, she only has 1 team-oriented skill, which grants a damage buff to all archers in the party. This would be useful if you had a party comprised of mainly archers, but in a balanced team, you're more than likely going to have a mix of character types, so I haven't had the need to use Gaia in a long time. You can use someone else with better burst damage and team abilities such as Karin and Artemis as a substitute. Because there are a plethora of other substitutes that are better than Gaia in damage and utility, she is placed at the bottom of the tier list. Similarly, we have Mary, which you can equate to being a physical damage form of Lilith. Like Lilith, Mary's active skill is a haste. However, Mary does not have any team-oriented skills, only skills that benefit herself. Because she has a haste as an active skill, Mary does a wonderful job in slasher mode, but due to her lack of team skills, she is often substituted with Lilith, but can sometimes be used in conjunction with Lilith if you don't have better characters such as Belphegor, Charon, and Kana. I haven't needed to use Mary anywhere outside of slasher mode and PvP. Because she only performs well in those 2 areas, she is placed towards the bottom of the tier list. Lastly is Khaleesi. Similarly to Athena and Lucifer, Khaleesi is another fire-type mage that can be used for stun-locking teams due to her stunning ability. Khaleesi used to be the worst mage because she was the only mage that didn't have any team abilities. Since then, she has been buffed and now provides the team a small boost in offensive capabilities, but not enough to write home about. Now she's just less bad, but still an essential character if you need a stun-lock team. Because Khaleesi is only used for one thing, which is stun locking, she is placed at the bottom of the tier list. That concludes my updated tier list for this season of Swordmaster Story. I know I didn't exactly go into every character extremely in depth, because if I did that, then this video would have been over an hour long. I do hope this video gave you a better idea as to what characters I actually use in the late to end game, and how frequently I use each character. That should give you a general idea as to who to build first. If you have any further questions, don't be afraid to let me know in the comments below. I'll make sure to answer every single comment. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.